Hello everyone. So in this video we are going to discuss that about the overloading and overwriting in the OOPS concept, object-oriented programming language. There are two type of concept are available. In the polymorphism, polymorphism is nothing but if one operator, one method or anything is can act as a different type of functionality depend on the situations, that is nothing but a polymorphism. So suppose that we have a plus operator can do the additions if both side is integer, and also the plus operator will act as an concatenations if both side is string. Okay, so if you see that plus operator is acting as an different type of functionality depending on the signature, depending on the situation, depending on the character, right? Integer, then to the additions, string, then to the concatenations, right? Similarly, star operators in the Python will act as an multiplier and also act as an repetitions. Okay, so if I'm going to do the star with the integer, it will do the multiplication. If I'm going to do the star with the string with integer, it will repeat as many times as it has, right? So that is the very best examples to explain about the polymorphism. And in the polymorphism also there are two things. One is the overloading and one is the overriding. So we are going to discuss about the first of all overloading. Okay, so what is the overloading? So overloading is just same example which I explained, that the same operator, same method can act as a different type of purpose. That is nothing but a overloading. Okay, there are three type of overloadings are there: operator overloading, method overloading, and constructor overloading. Constructor is nothing but is init method which is available in the class, object oriented programming language class, right? So overloading, if I'm going to touch with the operator overloading first, okay. So suppose that here plus operator is acting as an additions and also the plus operator acting as an concatenations. So that is nothing but a very best example about the operator overloading, because this is nothing but a plus operators. Okay. Similarly, multiplication also, that is nothing but a operator overloading. If I'm going to uh, do the here suppose that we have a method overloading. Okay, so in the method overloading the same method can be act as a different type of functionality depending on the situation. Suppose that we have a class is test class. In the test class we have created one method, that sum, and then sum is actually taking the n number of variables. If I'm going to pass any variable with the star, starting with the star, that is nothing but just showing as a n number of variables. It can be a 0, it can be a 1 variable, it can be a 2 variables, it can be n number of variables. Okay, so if I'm going to do the if I'm going to do the sum of all the variables which you are passing, or whatever the parameter we are passing, just do the addition. Okay, so in this kind of method, if I'm going to create an object of this class and if I'm going to call this method, right, sum of this object t dot sum, so either we can pass two variables, either we can pass three variable, either we can pass one variable, either we can pass nothing variables. Okay, if nothing variable is passed, the sum is 0. If one variable, the sum is itself the number. Three variable, it will do the sum and print the sum of the numbers, like that. So if you see this method, so this method is nothing but a method overloading example, where depending on the situations, depending on the signatures, it is acting differently, right? It can accept any number of the variables. Now the next example is constructor overloading. Constructor overloading is nothing but a init method, double underscore, starting with ending with that init. So that is nothing but the constructor, right? So in the constructor overloading, if I'm going to pass and three variables, right, a b c, and if by default I have assigned none, so it means that if variable is passing while calling the math while calling the method, if we are passing the data, then it will assign respectively. If it is not passing, it will assign by default as a none, right? That is the method of the default assignment. So if I'm going to create this object t1, and similarly this object t1, right? If I'm going to call this uh, object, create the object without any input parameters, so by default it will assign a b c as a none. If I'm creating an object with the help of one variable 10, then a become a 10 and rest of the b and c become a none. If I'm going to pass two variables 10 and 20, a will become a 10, b will become 20, and this will be none. Similarly, this one, it will assign a, b, c as 10, 20, and 30. So depending on the situations, depending on the signature, it is actually taking and handling all the scenario, and it is acting differently depending on the situation. That is nothing but a very much good example about the constructor overloading. This is nothing but a constructor overloading. Now, if I'm going to talk about the method overriding, last part. So method overriding is nothing but a when any any method is defined in parent class. Okay, this is a parent class, right? And this is the child class. Why we are calling the child class? Because we are going to inherit the parent class into the child class. So whatever the properties available in the parents class, all going to be uh, no automatically assign in the child class. Okay, suppose that we have a property, one method, this is the property, one method, this is the Mary. So all those method are going to be automatically comes into the C class, because we are going to inherit the parent class into the child class, right? And now we have a two property and Mary, two methods are there. If in the parent class Mary method is going to be print Dinesh, right? This is the functionality of Mary method, right? But I'm not satisfied with that. I'm going to modify this property. I'm going to modify the definition of the Mary method. In that case, in the child class, we are going to again define the Mary, same method name. Okay. And in this child class method, we are going to be modify the functionality. So in this child class, we are going to print as a Dinesh. Earlier in the parent class, it is doing the Dinesh as in printing, but now in the child class, it is printing as in Kumar, right? So in this scenario, we are just overriding the existing method which is available in the parent class into the child class. And now if I'm going to create a child class object, and now if I'm going to call the property, right? So property, there is no modification, no overriding, so it will print as it is. But if I'm going to call the Mary method, so it will not going to call Mary method of the parent class, right? Because we have overridden in the child class. So whatever the definition is available in the child class, that will going to be print, because we have overridden. So the Kumar will be going to print, not the Dinesh. So this is nothing but a very good example about the method overriding in the OOPS concept, right? I hope you understand these concepts. Thank you so much for joining.